7:14. Before we get to our guest,
yes.
Guess who's got a birthday today?
Who?
Our mayor.
Really?
Yeah.
We gonna sing? You send him a cake or something?
Well, we're just gonna have people call his office, wish him happy birthday.
Well, that'd be nice.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Let's see. Let me go here to contacts and get.
Was this like a surprise? We were gonna do this?
It just popped up.
Oh, it just came up.
Yeah, let's see.
Okay.
We need to call 425-5116 today and wish our mayor a happy birthday.
425-5116.
Yeah, that's the mayor's
Say
phone.
happy birthday, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Good
Happy
for
birthday,
him.
Joe Dillard. Well, we want to welcome to the studio Cody Hiland, conservative candidate for Court of Appeals 2-2. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Good morning, guys. Glad to be here.
Good to have you. It's nice to meet you, and I'm excited about this election. Chance to get another conservative on Court of Appeals. We've got some very important judicial races. I was visiting with somebody yesterday, and they just said, oh, you know, when it comes down to those judges, I just kind of close my eyes and hit the button.
Yeah.
I thought, no.
Yeah.
I mean, no.
Dale, you know, we can elect all the conservative state representatives and senators that you want to elect, and if you don't have a judiciary that's willing to honor the separation of powers and willing not to legislate from the bench, then it's going to do no good. And so we have to have people who are willing to exercise discipline and not engage in judicial fiat in changing the law when they're on the court. And I think that's what's important. And one of the things that I tell, I'm about as conservative a guy as you're going to find, socially, fiscally, that sort of thing. But I tell even my conservative friends, you know, don't expect me to be a conservative activist on the judge. You know, the job of the legislature is to create policy, not the judicial branch.
Exactly.
That's not their role.
Exactly. Go ahead. I'm just taking notes.
So you know, people, especially in judicial races today, and your friend that you were talking to, one of the problems is there's precious little information about judges that are out there because, number one, it's a nonpartisan race, and number two, they've restricted what we can say and what we can talk about. And so one of the things that I try to do when we visit with people is to give them my perspective on government, just in general. And I'm the elected prosecutor in the 20th Judicial District, which is Faulkner, Van Buren, and Searcy County. And I had addressed an FCLI group one day in our courthouse. And after the speech was over, I had a lady raise her hand and ask a question. And she said, Mr. Hiland, she said, with just a touch of accusation, Mr. Hiland, what are you going to do to reduce crime? Well, guys, that's a fair question to ask a prosecutor, sure. Right? And so my response was this. You know, there are really two ways to reduce crime, and that's being simplistic, but for the most part, there are two ways. Number one, we're going to be tough on crime. And, you know, we feel like the deterrent effect is the real tool in our toolbox to be able to deter crime as the state of Arkansas. But really, the second way to reduce crime, and the best way, is to have better people. And Cody Hiland can't make better people. Congressman, the president can't make better people. Government cannot make people better. If you want to transform a heart, you need to talk to the one who parted the Red Sea and fed the 5,000.
There you go.
The one who made the lame to walk and the blind to see. He can transform a heart. The state of Arkansas cannot. And so inherent in her question, the reason I bring that up, inherent in her question was the idea that government had the answer to the problem. And the truth is, a lot of times, most of the time, government doesn't have the answer to the solutions to our problems, but too often in today's world, when we face a problem, we turn to government for the solution, right, instead of turning to ourselves and that self-reliance, that self-determination that made us who we are as a nation, and that dependence upon God. And so, you know, I think ultimately we have to understand that, especially as in the criminal justice world, I'm going to be tough on crime. Law enforcement and your sheriff is going to be tough on crime because we owe that to our community. But at the end of the day, we're on the backside of that. Exactly. And so
that crime started
a
long
time ago, guys. And I'll tell you this too, Dale. I think I've said this to you before. Mm-hmm. If the law would allow for the doors of the juvenile court system to swing open wide, and you could watch what's going on in there, you would see kid after kid after kid who's lonely, and they're angry and they're bitter because mom and dad have checked out. Because they're pursuing whatever immediate gratification driving them at the time. Usually it's drugs. Yeah. And so these kids need their parents there. Now, a lot of times you have grandpa and grandma that are trying, but they're tired and they're not parents. And so it's a difficult process to see. And so you see these young kids who are going to be the criminals of tomorrow. And, there's a lot of talk about mental health issues in today's world. And there are a lot of mental health issues. But a lot of our mental health issues are emotional issues that developed from an early age because we don't have parents that are stepping up and doing the right thing as far as raising their children, giving them a respect for authority, providing them discipline, giving them love, all of the things that a child needs to survive and to become a productive member of society.
That you have a mommy, maybe a daddy, but you don't have a parent.
That's right.
Mom.
That's
dad.
right.
You don't have that structure that were fortunate enough to grow up.
Yeah, and Bob, you'd be surprised at how cold and callous these kids get so quickly. Yeah. And commit just heinous acts that can't go into now, but Please. With people that have stepped in and tried to love them, but they're so angry because mom and dad are on meth and have never had anything to do with them, and so again, lonely, angry, and they're bitter. And there's not a 12-step program that the state of Arkansas can provide you that helps with that. That's going to be, that's a spiritual issue. It's a family issue that government doesn't have the answer to.
On the same token, what we don't realize is these same children are in our elementary schools and our junior highs and our middle schools.
Yeah.
And the teachers and administration and other faculty members have to deal with these early symptoms of these issues.
One of the toughest jobs in the state of Arkansas has to be being a teacher or an administrator in a public school district. Yeah. We got a call, and we could tell you story after story. We don't have time for all of those, but I'll tell you one. It was right after the Sandy Hook shooting, and we had a teacher that called, and she was just scared to death because a 14-year-old boy had written her an essay, and I won't go into the details, but suffice it to say that it was threatening to both her and her daughter and in graphic terms. And so we immediately sent the sheriff's office up, and we were going to arrest this punk. I mean, we were going to take him down and get him in juvenile, 14-year-old. And my wife was at school that day, and one of the teachers came up to her and said, look, I know this is going down and it needs to go down, but I want Cody to understand something, some level of context. This is a kid whose dad's never been in the picture. His mom's a meth head. He's had to raise himself. He has to go to a neighbor's house to ask for cereal. And when he was in kindergarten, I took him under my wing and at least started buying him Christmas presents. Just a small thing. Started buying.
Sure.
And so she said, I want you to know what he said to me. And so after he had done this to this teacher, sent this essay, he walked over to this other teacher knowing he was about to be in trouble. And he said, I just want you to know that I'm going away. I've done something very bad. And she said, well, what did you do, so-and-so? And he said, well, it's bad enough to make you stop loving me. And the point of the story is, as bad as he was, that one teacher that showed him just a little bit of kindness, a little bit of love throughout from his kindergarten days till he was 14, that's who he wanted to talk to let her know that he was going away because he loved her because of what she had done for him.
Right.
And so, as much as we want, and we did, and we brought him in, and he was a danger to society, and we're going to take care of it. But the bottom line is, the ultimate cause is lack of love, lack of discipline, lack of parenting on the part of his parents. And it's tough for these teachers to not do their job in teaching. They also have to try to impose some level of discipline, and that's tough to do with a lot of these kids who grow up with zero respect for authority. And so if you see a teacher today, pat them on their back because they've earned every bit of their salary.
Unbelievable.
The court position that you're running for, here's the cases that are on appeal from the local judiciary here.
Right.
And how big of an area does that cover?
18 counties. 18 counties. So we have 7 Court of Appeals districts. Each of those districts has 2 seats. This is seat 2, with the exception of 2 down south, and they just have 1. And so I've got 18 counties. I've got Faulkner, Conway County, Pope County, which is Russellville. Then it kind of swings in a northeasterly direction. Newton, Boone, Marion, Baxter, Randolph County, Independence, Cleburne, Izzard, Sharp, Jackson. I mean, it's a large district.
My goodness, I'm
You've
looking
got
at
a
the
pretty
map
diverse socioeconomic group,
Yes.
as well as the geographic
Geographic and socioeconomic.
Yeah.
In fact, even in my district, as a prosecuting attorney, I've got Faulkner, Van Buren, and Searcy County, and 3 more diverse counties you'll never find.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just different folks, and so this is something that the great thing about campaigning is you get to meet new people and you get to see good people. And as a prosecuting attorney, it's been refreshing because what we see coming through our courtrooms, you get a little jaded at times, right?
Sure.
Because of who you deal with, and include the criminal defense attorneys and their clients. And so it's nice to be able to get out into the community and actually meet the people who make this country go.
That's right.
The people who get up every morning, they take care of their kids, they put their boots on, and they go to work. They come home, they go to church on Wednesday night, they play softball, they coach Little League, they pay their they start paying attention to politics about 2 or 3 weeks before the election. Those are the people who make this country work. And so we're getting to meet those, and that's been an exciting and refreshing part of the campaign process.
And again, the importance of these judicial races, of the 4 that we have on our ballot here in Baxter, Marion, that people need to realize that these elections have consequences.
Oh, absolutely.
These gentlemen that'll be sitting on the bench with, if not your fate directly, because you're a good person and I'm never going to stand in front of these guys, so I don't care.
Right.
But they affect the quality of life that you live in your area. And it's very important that you work your way down the ballot and vote for these judges.
These judge positions are like any other position. It's an office of public trust. And you need to know as much about the person that's filling that office as you possibly can, because again, they're exercising discretion. They're making decisions that have impact over people's lives on a daily basis. Prosecutors do the same thing. Every day there's a decision that we have to make. These are gravity-filled decisions. Judges are in the same position. And so absolutely know as much as you can about these folks. And on a Court of Appeals Supreme Court level, again, we elect legislators and senators to make our public policy. And so what we want to do, when we had our announcement, we had it in the Capitol, in the old Supreme Court room. And we did that to be symbolic. And the idea was we believe in separation of powers. And we believe that it's time to re-empower the legislator to do what he has been called to do under the Constitution, and that is to create public policy and reflect the values and the mores of the people that sent him there. And so what we've got to get away from, and this is happening on a national level and on a statewide level too, is that bleeding over from interpreting facts and law to engaging in public policy and creating public policy, legislating from the bench. We hear that term a lot.
Sure.
And that's a big problem. Our job as judges is not to legislate. Our job is to rule on the facts and the law in front of us, to interpret the constitutional protection that protects all of us, but not to read into the Constitution things that aren't there just so that we can accomplish an ends that we would desire to see. And one of the key critical things I think that you've got to do as a judge is to be able to discipline yourself.
Yeah.
Not to make a decision based on emotion or because you want to see something happen, because that's not your job.
Just so you say that there can be how can I phrase this gently? Do judges have a personal agenda?
Well, I think all of us have personal agendas. I think all of us have a worldview that we bring to the table.
Sure, no matter what
and so let me give you an example. As a prosecutor,
a little more than a minute before we break.
You bet. You want to go ahead and take the break? Or?
Now we've got a minute. This time.
The computer kicks it.
Computer kicks it. One of the things that we do as prosecuting attorney is there are cases that we have. We had a 19-month-old baby that had 15 broken bones.
Oh.
And guys, I had an abiding conviction that the daddy was responsible just because he couldn't stand to hear the baby cry. And at the end of the day, my emotion wanted me to take him through the system. Let's file anyway, take him through the system, and let him experience that. But what I didn't have was evidence. And as a prosecuting attorney, you have to have evidence. You can't just go file cases against people. And so you have to discipline yourself to take your emotion out of it and to rule on the law and the facts that are in front of you, and judges have to do the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, you see, you can't believe the things that go on.
You've been on one side.
You cannot believe the things that go on. But that's a whole other issue.
Yep. I mean, and on the flip side, there are cases that I would love to have not had to mess with. Yeah. We've had to file charges against a Faulkner County administrator for paving his own driveway. I've had to remove a sheriff in Saline. I was special prosecutor in Saline County Sheriff, and he was a Republican. And we've had public officials that we've had to deal with, and that's no fun. But you have to do it because their equal protection under the law is important. Everybody has to be treated the same, no matter their position or station in life.
Now we're going to take a news break. We're visiting with Cody Hiland, who's a candidate for Court of Appeals 2-2. We'll be right back right after the news. Stick around. 7:35. Continuing our discussion with candidate Cody Hiland, Court of Appeals 2-2. And Bob and I have been on the program the last couple of days talking about these judicial races and the importance of them. And like I say, don't just close your eyes at the ballot box when it comes down to the judges and just aim your finger. This is important. This is important.
You want to get out. You want to vote. We have 4 judges that are running for positions here. We have Dan Kemp, Judge John Dan Kemp, who's running for the Arkansas Supreme Court Chief Justice spot. Sean Womack, you all are familiar with that name. He's running for the Supreme Court as well as an Associate Justice. Cody Hiland here, who's running for District 2-2, and Judge Jason Duffy, who's running for the District Court of Baxter and Marion County. Mm-hmm. And work your way down the ballot. It's not just about the top with the big name presidential things. You've got judges running. You've got JPs running in both counties here, and in any county they can hear our voice. Work your way down. This is your chance to vote. You can't sit there and say it doesn't matter, because it does. We have Barack Obama for 8 years because of people sitting home saying it doesn't matter.
It matters.
It matters.
And look what happened in the Supreme Court the last couple of years.
Well, look what's going to happen. The next president is going to have at least 2, maybe 3 choices. And God help us.
Yeah,
that could be very bad.
Yeah. So important that we and once again we got to stress this point. The judicial will not be on the November ballot. Judicial votes during the primary.
Right.
So if you don't want to vote in the Republican, and if your area has a Democrat primary, that's fine and dandy. You can choose a judicial ballot only.
And exactly. Right. There's a ballot you can just pick just the judges on there. Take that.
Yeah.
And the same in Marion County, there'll be the same thing for the tax for the jail. Mm-hmm. That'll be the same way if you don't want to declare a party.
Yeah, and a lot of people are confused about that. They think, well, I'll just vote for the judge in November, and there will be no election.
The judge will already be sitting down.
That'll be. In fact, if we win this election, I will still be prosecutor until January of 2017.
Yeah, really?
It's a full year before we take over. I mean, so it's over with quickly because of moving the primary up from May to I guess to accommodate the SEC primary. For, some of those reasons, but it'll be over with quickly.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself. We were talking during the break.
Yeah, Bob, I was raised in rural Van Buren County in Bee Branch, Arkansas. I don't know if our listeners know where Bee Branch is, but the Catfish House is there, and Snappy Mart, and some of the best chicken you'll ever buy. I grew up in an idyllic situation. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, but not a lot of people did back then. And my dad worked hard. He drove to Jacksonville 70 miles one way with another guy just so that we could be raised in a small town. I tell people, I won the lottery in life when it came to parents. And by that, I mean, I've been blessed. I've got 2 parents who are our biggest fans, but, they made sure that we were in church on Wednesday night, Sunday morning, and Sunday night. But I tell people it wasn't a legalistic faith. It was they lived what they taught. And that's something that is so critical too. It's not just about teaching you X, Y, and Z. It's about living it and about a relationship with the one who made you. And so that was critical to my development. And one of the great things about that time in our history was, the things that I was taught at home, they were reinforced at school and reinforced at church and in our community. We shared communal values that were reinforced, and that gives you a sense of confidence and a sense of purpose that a lot of our kids today don't have.
Yeah.
And so I was blessed. Jim and Kay Hiland are my parents. I had one sister named Cammie. She married a pastor, and they've moved to Missouri. And I've got 4 kids. I've got Claire, Caitlin, John Reagan, and Ethan. Now, John Reagan was going to be Ronald Reagan Hiland. However, my wife's dad was a Union Pacific engineer, and couldn't stand. He was a yellow dog Democrat back in the day. He's changed now, but he was a yellow dog Democrat, and so we compromised on John Reagan Hiland, and so now when we get together, we call him by his first two names, John Reagan, a good Southern.
That's right.
That's it. It's John Reagan. Well, they just call him John. so it's been a compromise. So
And that's what life is. It's
that's
a compromise.
it. Well, as far as that goes, so I was willing to compromise on that. But we've been blessed beyond measure. We've got 4 beautiful, healthy children that we thank the Lord for every day. Well adjusted. My wife has stayed home with them. We made that choice early on, and I will tell you, Janet would be a much better attorney than I will ever be. But she has given her life to her kids. No, she doesn't.
No. Where did you go to school?
I went to school graduated from Southside B Branch, and then went to Central Baptist College in Conway, and then finished at UCA, graduate there, and then went to UALR. And then my first job out of school was with the Governor Huckabee, which again was a dream job for me.
There you go.
And so that's where it started. And you walk those marble halls, and there's just something about it that gets in your blood.
Our childhood have similarities. I was in extreme southern Illinois, just outside of St. Louis, but even in those days, in the 60s, if you got in trouble at school, you got it from Dad at home at night.
Oh, yeah.
Because you respected the teacher, you respected the hall monitor, the people keeping control of the cafeteria, the bus driver, your Sunday school teacher, and just, Wednesday night, Sunday morning,
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people today, there are still 3 men that if they asked me to butt my head through that brick wall, I would do it. And one is my dad.
Yeah.
The other is my high school coach that moved on when we were in 10th grade, Bogie Hester. And then the other is Joe Wisenhunt, who gave me my first job picking up rocks in front of a front end loader. And we made $250 an hour, whatever we were making at the time.
Sure.
But you know what? Joe wanted us to make sure that we did it right and that we developed a work ethic. And so, those formative years are important, and growing up in B Branch was a special time and something I wouldn't trade for anything.
Before we took the news break, we were talking about judges legislating from the bench, and we've had this big deal going on about the nativity scene on the courthouse lawn. Previous judges have gone along with the ACLU by putting Santa Claus next to one of the wise men, and how that appeases ACLU boggles mine.
Yeah.
But when the county judge came in here and he says the judge made a judgment on his opinion. Okay, so in other words, it's not law.
Yeah.
So does that mean we can't put it back out there? Well, the judge made a judgment based on his opinion that if we do this and we got to allow everything, even the flying spaghetti monster church. I mean, seriously, have you looked at that?
No, I haven't seen that
particular
one.
Literally, the
But
state
they're
of
still going to
California.
get bizarre little things.
Yeah.
There's no, as soon as you said California, you were done.
Yeah, but
yeah.
Literally, the state of California, ACLU, has had to allow the flying spaghetti monster church people to have their picture taken with a colander on their head for driver's
that's
license.
fine.
That's how stupid it is.
It reaches a point of absurdity. Now, Dale, this is one of those things too. We have to be careful as a judicial candidate not to get into a particular case because you wouldn't want to, not be able to hear a case like that. I can tell you when it comes to the 10 Commandments, and I'm going to say this because I believe I have the right to free speech, and I'm going to say it. I believe that the 10 Commandments are fundamental to our society and to our law.
Amen to that.
And so, that's all I'll say about that. But it's frustrating.
And there's only so much the judges can actually do because based on precedent, you're kind of the building blocks of where we go as a society, judicially, where we go.
Yeah.
So even though a judge may say, well, I really don't agree with this, but you've got 10 other cases where they've said, no, this is what we do.
But again, precedent can be changed. I mean, at one time, a black woman couldn't sit on a bus. And one time, black folks weren't allowed into colleges. And so, throughout history, there have been court decisions that have, again, gone against precedent and changed the way we do things. And so I don't think absolutely precedent is important. It's binding, but it's not something that is completely restrictive either.
Okay. Real quick, I want to reiterate the fact that we're going to have a meet and greet with Cody Hiland here at 8 o'clock, Old Time Restaurant on the Square. Come on down, have coffee, whatever you want on the menu. Scooter's got some tables reserved for us, but we want people to come into Old Time Restaurant on the Square here at 8 o'clock. I've got to be there. I've got to be back here at 9 o'clock for a quick recording. But then we want Cody to meet as many people as we can. So get ready right now and join us here in about 15, 20 minutes down at Old Time.
Dale's not buying. Don't misunderstand what he's saying here. Dale is not picking up the check as much as I would like him to. Dale doesn't pick up.
I brought 30 bucks. Hey, let's take a quick break. We're visiting with Cody Hiland, candidate for Court of Appeals 2-2. We're going to be right back. 7:48. Continuing our discussion with Court of Appeals candidate Cody Hiland. I want to let you know, folks, that Mr. Hiland thinks, well, the importance of this election. He left Conway this morning at 4 a.m. to be on this program, and and to drive those roads through the middle of the night,
ducking deer and everything else running across the
smoke
street.
on the Buffalo River.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of acreage they're burning when that smoke comes all the way up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. You can see it's the southern part of my house.
Well, it's just incredibly important. I mean, and with the time restriction, we have a compressed election cycle, so we've lost 2 months and being able to get out and really visit with folks, and so it's a sprint. Sure. It's a sprint, and it's worth it to put the work in because it's too important not to. We have to have people on the bench who understand the role of the judiciary. And again, it's not about conservative liberal. It's about the role of the judiciary and not being an activist judge and leaving the public policy making to those who were elected to do so. And that's your state representatives and state senators. What we can't have is 4 out of 7 people on a court by judicial fiat saying, you know what, I don't like that idea. I don't like what the public policy makers came up with, and so we're going to change it. That's got to stop. And
Which
that's
is really one person.
Yeah, I mean so that's what's got to stop, and so that's something that we feel like it's worth getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, coming to Mountain Home, going back down to Cave City and Batesville, and then we'll be in Russellville tonight for a meet and greet because we're invested that much in the campaign because we feel like it's too important not to leave everything on the field at the end of the day so that we can serve the public and hopefully do it in a way that will make people proud.
And speaking of being invested, there is an investment in this for you, for your family, and everything else. And while you can't take money, your PAC can't. And if someone wanted to help out, believes in the good conservative cause, the importance of having conservative judges that are going to be here affecting us, they could stop by Old Time.
Yeah.
And we can make arrangements for funds to get transferred to where they need to go. And it would be appreciated because the good judge can't solicit, but I can't.
And Bob, I appreciate it. Yeah, we're ethically prohibited from talking. But we have a campaign committee that handles all of that. And
you can't even ask like a candidate for Senate or House of Representatives.
No.
I've actually had somebody that came up to me and said, "Hey, I would like to give you a check," and I had to say, and it offended him really because it almost makes them feel like they've done something wrong, and I certainly didn't mean to do that, but I couldn't take the check, and so I had to explain to him, look, there are rules involved. We have a committee, and I really appreciate the support. But you're going to have to talk to somebody else.
Well,
That's
I
right.
told you about the time.
And we've done.
The gentleman was handing Rhonda Wood out here. We were at the Republican Men's a couple of years ago, and a $50. And I mean, she literally.
Yes. It was almost like you're handing somebody a snake, right?
Because that's the thing. That's the picture that's going to break. And the Arkansas Democrats.
That's right. Well, you want to follow the rules, and you want to be ethical. But I will tell you the way that the rules are structured now, it's somewhat because at the end of the month I had to sign a report saying that all of my contributions were ethical and legal. Well, then how do you know that if you haven't?
If you didn't have anything to do with it,
so it's conflicting a little bit as far as it's inconsistent. Yeah. But to the extent that we can follow the rules, we're going to follow the rules and be ethical.
One thing we're down to 4 minutes 30 seconds here. People think, well, I don't need the Court of Appeals. What's that got to do with me? Let's talk real quick in the last couple minutes here. This process. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you know more about it than me, and of course Bob's been on the other end in the crime prevention area. Where does the Court of Appeals and how does it affect me as a citizen that really knows nothing about the Court of Appeals?
Well, there's the Amendment 80 changed the way we did things in the judiciary. We now have district courts who handle things like speeding tickets, misdemeanor criminal cases. In our district, we use the district court as the intake. And so first appearances, for even felony cases are heard there. The circuit court is the court of general jurisdiction. And so if somebody sues you or you're sued, generally that's where you're going to be. All of our felony criminal cases are in circuit court. And so if a mistake is made in that process, you have a right to an appeal. And so the Court of Appeals will hear criminal cases, it will hear unemployment cases, workers' comp cases. I mean, you name it, it'll hear the case. Now, there are some cases that go directly to the Supreme Court, but at the Court of Appeals level, if we make a decision on a panel, they can appeal to the Supreme Court to take the case up. The Supreme Court can say, no, I don't think so, or yeah, we'll take it and look at it again. And so that's kind of where we are in the process.
So if I got a ticket for not wearing my seatbelt, and I pleaded guilty and paid my fine here locally, but told the judge I want to appeal this to a higher court and say, look, based on the fact that it's due to a government grant and not about safety, because school buses do not have seatbelts,
right.
And if I was on a motorcycle, I don't have to have a helmet. So I have the choice on the motorcycle, but my child on the school bus doesn't even have the option, but I have to in a minivan or an automobile that has an airbag.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, on dirt roads and all these blind hills and
they're
just flying over. We don't have any seatbelts or anything. So, but what would happen was if you got a ticket and you wanted to challenge it on a constitutional basis, within district court, if you get a ruling that's adverse to you, you have 30 days to appeal it to circuit court, and you get to completely redo the facts. It's not just a matter of law; it's facts, the law, everything. At the circuit court level, if you lose and want to appeal, really it has to be an error made by a judge on the law.
Yeah.
Very rarely do they, and sometimes they will send it back to the court and say we need to redo this and remand it back. And but that would be the process that you would go through: is district court, hey, I don't like your decision, I want to go to circuit court, have my day in court, it's unconstitutional, and then you move up the chain.
Bob?
So you would go from Judge Duffy to Judge Hiland to Judge Womack and Kemp. Sounds like a law firm, actually. But
Actually, you'd go to Judge Duffy, you'd go to Judge Kemp now, then you would go to if we were elected to us, or
right.
It might go straight to Judge Kemp if he wins for the Supreme Court race.
Yeah.
So
once again, importance of judicial. Final minute. Time's all yours, Cody.
Well, guys, again, Dale, this is the third time you've had me on. I really appreciate it. You endorsed us last time, which means the world to us. And again, we are invested in this thing, and we're working our tails off and making sure that we get to talk to as many people as possible. Reaching voters is important, and knowledge about who you're electing is critical. And if the one thing I can emphasize is, March 1st is the last day to vote for your judge. A lot of people don't understand that. Get information, find out who these people are and what they believe, find out what their worldview is, so that when you get these decisions that are coming down, you're not surprised and say, what in the world is our world coming
how did that
to?
happen?
Yeah.
Very important.
Once again, the election is on March 1st. This is the final election for judicial.
Early voting starts on the 16th.
Yes.
So get out.
Very important.
Vote early. I would say vote often if we were at Cook County, but we're not there anymore.
This is not Cook County.
So we'll sell for vote early. And even Barack acknowledged that yesterday in his speech in front of the State House in Illinois.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask your listeners for their vote. It's important.
Exactly.
We would appreciate your support and your vote, and thank you very much.
Vote for Cody Hiland, Court of Appeals 2-2. It'll be on the ballot on the early vote starting on the 16th and on the March 1 primary. Come on down to Old Time Restaurant on the Square. We're on our way. We'll see you there. Come on down. See you tomorrow.